on the News Channel 5 network. This is MorningLine with Nick Barris.
Good morning, everyone. Thanks for joining us on MorningLine, coming to you live direct on this Monday morning. Hope you had a pleasant weekend. Certainly an awful lot going on since we've last talked. We had a few tape shows last week, but this is live this morning. And stay in. It's already getting sizzling hot, according to Leland. And if it's following up on what we saw the last 2 days, it's an air-conditioned day, if you ask me. Either that or something outside in the shade with some iced tea. But anyway, this morning, we've got a good show on tap for you on MorningLine. We're going to get to our main guest in a moment. Later in the program, stick around. John Harris with the Tennessee Firearms Association is going to come on. We're going to talk about some policies as it regards to guns and your right to self-defense and how to go about it in instances like we've seen recently. Many people have commented, in these cases where you had looters hitting businesses. What if one of those store merchants had been there on the scene when someone's breaking into one of their establishments? Could they have defended it with lethal force, and what the laws are along those lines? We'll talk to the executive director of the Tennessee Firearms Association later in the program. But first, obviously, a lot of discussion going on still with regard to what's happening with the Metro budget as the meetings continue on whether or not there will be a property tax increase. And as we approach the month of June, that's something making our way into June, what the vote coming up is going to be. And we're also going to touch on a few other issues here as we see what's happening in Minneapolis and other cities around the country, talking about the idea of defunding a police department. People mention that in different cities, not that it's moving anywhere here in Nashville, but both folks have called for the police chief to resign. What that might entail if we go in that direction. And we'll take your phone calls as well. If you want to join in the conversation, we'll get the number up. But starting first off to talk about the budget is Metro Councilmember Bob Mendes. Good morning to you, Mr. Mendes. Thanks for joining us.
Hey, good morning. Thanks for having me on.
Well, I know you guys have been awful busy, and I thought we'd just set things off as we can now after what happened last week, where you see things standing with regard to this budget and the proposed property tax increase, and again, remind us when there's going to be that first vote.
Well, we're going to take the final vote next Tuesday, 8 days from now.
Okay.
We've been working on the budget for quite some time. We've already been through 2 readings of 3, and the final vote will be next Tuesday, the 16th.
All right, so that'll be the final vote. And, I know there have been alternative budgets proposed, and there's a lot of contention over this. As you see it, is there still wiggle room? Can there be some changes? Are you leaning towards seeing what looks to you like a 32% property tax increase still is what's the go?
Yeah, so the mayor's proposed increasing the rate by $1. It would be the first increase in the rate since 2012. And, the way the Metro charter works, unless the council, a majority of the council agrees on something else, that will go into effect. So there's definitely going to be a rate increase. Some of the other proposals that are out there are not really credible. And it's going to basically boil down to either the rate goes up by $1 or the rate goes up by $1.06. I think those are going to be the only 2 credible proposals.
Yeah. If you would, share with us some of what you tell your constituents, and I'm sure you have folks who support this, but then we also obviously hear from many people that are frustrated about, oh boy, we have a property tax increase with everything we're dealing with right now with COVID and so many people out of work. How do you frame it for those constituents of yours who have concerns about this and try to make them understand in your mind why this is so badly needed?
Well, first of all, I do feel for people, these are extremely tough times. But right up near the top of people or groups suffering is the Metro government. We, as a city, managed to enter this downturn with the worst savings of any big city in America, dead last for the 25 biggest cities in America for what was in the savings account heading into this downturn. Mm-hmm. And just like everybody knows their family, if you been the worst out of 25 families on the block in terms of how much money you have in the bank heading into this, you'd be hurting. And this isn't a business where we can just shut it down and go home. We still need schools, we still need fire protection, we still need police, we still need roads, we still need garbage picked up. And so there really is not a choice the rate needs to be this in order to keep the metro government functioning the way it needs to.
And remind too, we've talked about this before when you've been on the program, and you're right. Before any of all of this happened, I mean, the city was already in some deep financial straits. And a lot of people try to point to, I thought we were the it city, and I thought we have all these visitors and all this tax money coming in from people spending money from outside the area. How is that not something that's kept us, in the black instead of the red? I mean, what do you think? I mean, what's the difference here, and why did we fall behind?
Well, I mean, everybody knows that as the city's gotten bigger, we've also increased in population. We're over 700,000 people in the metro area, in Davidson County now, and we haven't raised the tax rate since 2012. And the way state law works is always the lion's share of revenue that we're going to get is from property tax. That's just the way state law is set up. We don't control that. We can't really do anything about that. And getting behind on not raising the property tax rate in 8 years and only once in 15 years, you could double all the other taxes on tourists and you wouldn't cover the gap that we've got right now. Property tax is, unfortunately, under Tennessee law, the only real option to fund the majority of a city's finances.
Yeah, and boy, I'll tell you what, Councilman, the hits just keep coming. I mean, as you said, we were already strapped before anything really bad happened. Then we've got the tornadoes. Then we've got COVID, and then this past week with the riots, and not that was a lot of damage, but there certainly was considerable damage and a lot of police officers and fire working overtime. I mean, it's just compounding the situation. I mean, there's a lot of money of late, going out, or money that's going to have to be spent to cover a lot of the types of actions we've seen, isn't there?
That's true, but we also, I mean, the one that you didn't mention is the same communities in Nashville who are most impacted by COVID are the ones that are most impacted by who have suffered the most discrimination over the years to begin with. And the African American, Latino communities in Nashville are suffering disproportionately from the COVID virus. And you add in the unrest nationally over police killings, and it makes for a volatile, uncomfortable situation that we need to address.
Yeah, right, and we'll talk more about that in a moment. Let's take a phone call for you. We've got Joe on line one. Good morning, Joe. Do you have a question for the councilman, Joe?
I guess the biggest question I've got, I've said it before and I'll say it again. Metro-style government is antiquated. Whenever the council runs the city rather than the mayor, you see where we're at right now. You see how that's turned out. And to suggest that you take money out of the police budget to use it for something else, when the police department right now is understaffed as it is. That's the reason for all this overtime and other stuff that they're having to pay out. So what's his thought on that, about taking the police department budget and cutting it more than it is now when there's shorter people right now?
Okay.
What's his answer to that?
I don't know. I mean, is that one of the things that have been looked at? I mean, I wasn't sure. Does this mean that with a property tax increase, police and fire budgets are still going to be cut?
Yeah, so because of that worst in America savings account for big cities, almost all the tax increase goes to making up for lost sales tax revenue because of the virus, and trying to make a little bit of ground in the bank account. Instead of having a couple days of cash in the bank, we're trying to get to having a couple weeks of cash in the bank account. And almost all of the taxes go toward making up lost sales tax and trying to get a little bit of savings. The proposal I have on the budget, like most every department, keeps the police department flat year over year. there's only a couple of departments in the whole city that would get any increase on my proposal. I would have the police department be flat. The mayor's proposal has the police department funding go up by $2.6 million, which is less than 1%. So there is a $2.6 million difference between the mayor's budget and mine on the police department. But on the 200 plus million the police department gets, that's about 1% difference.
Okay, and would you say in a perfect world, if we had more resources available, that the police department and fire and some of these other services should expand and could expand, that the city needs that with the growth we've been seeing, but it's just something that it has to remain flat right now, at least maybe not cutting back?
Well, there's a difference between police and fire budgets, and this is kind of in the weeds, but the police department has 180 funded positions that are unfilled because they're just haven't been able to fill the positions, but those positions are funded. The fire department, on the other hand, has a need to add new positions that are currently not funded. The fire department averages about 3 firefighters on a piece of equipment that ought to have 4. And we need to fix that by getting them more firefighters to man the equipment. The police department, on the other hand, their shortfall is not a budget issue. They have 108 open officer positions that are funded. They're just not able to fill them. Why do you think, and I know this could be a question for the chief, but why is it you think they can't fill those positions? Metro does this isn't argument, this is fact. Compared to peer cities, the compensation here for Metro police officers is and most of Metro employees is not adequate. Most of our police recruits come from out of town, and they can go up the road, up I-65 to Indianapolis, and have a starting salary that's almost $10,000 higher than here in Metro, and that's a competitive disadvantage. Gotcha. That's an easy answer right there, sir. Listen, we'll take a quick break. When we come back, we have a few more calls, one more segment with Councilman Mendes. More to talk about right after this. Please stay with us.